I want to tell you about the magic of SoftFlex wire. I mean, this stuff comes in so many colors and so many thicknesses, but I'm going to be using these medium ones. And I've just pulled a few out of my stash, and I've got some medium in the garnet color, some in this pink tourmaline color, and some in this amethyst color. So I'm obviously feeling very gemstone today. And what I want you to look at as I create with this is imagining all of your supplies used in non-traditional ways. Because we have so many things, and of course we want so many more as it affects our creativity. When we have more ingredients, we can make more stuff, right? But sometimes you have things like beading wire and beads and stuff. It's like, what am I going to do with these? Well, let's just make a glow-in-the-dark weirdo that's going to use some of this beading cable for flexible hairdo. All right, instead of the traditional use for stringing, which this does beautifully. But beading cable or beading wire is like a twisted metal cable that's covered with a colored plastic. And there's just so many fun things you can do with it. So I am going to get Sculpey Primo in the glow-in-the-dark color, to which I always add a little bit of the Sculpey Granite. That's a great combination, and I come up with, after I mix it thoroughly together, this nice color that will glow in the dark. I usually make these little ghoulies out of it, which has just been something I've made forever and ever. And they're just little weirdos that stand up and do nothing other than look at you and be silly in your life. But I figure we need more silliness in our lives, right? So I've taken this lump, I've formed it in sort of an oval, and I've smashed it so it will stand up. And then I am going to use my tweezers to embed two little glass blobs for eyeballs. This is a little glass ball that I get, and I'll put the link in the description if you want to find them yourself. But I just shove this into the clay because polymer clay bakes in the oven and it doesn't shrink or anything, so I can stick whatever the heck I want in there as long as it will be okay in the oven. It's going to do great, which these will. So I've got two little eyeballs there, right? Now he needs a mouth of some kind. That could be any number of things, but let's just take my cutting blade and shove a mouth in there. All of these tools that I'm using, if you're kind of new to seeing polymer clay or new to me, I carry them on my little online store, and I'll put a link in the description to that as well. And there is a tutorial that goes into how to make these little ghouly creatures a little bit more in depth. Again, link in the description, but I just thought I'd show you this cute little thing. So here we have now a guy with his big fat mouth sticking open, and let's give him a little bit of a tongue, shall we? So I have a little bit of extra clay over here, and let's roll it into a tongue-like ball and press it down. And then I'm going to use my needle tool, another one of those handy little tools, to just press an indentation. And this tool is my favorite. It's the Wow It's Awesome tool. It's one of my specialty tools. So if you are going to play with polymer clay or other sculpting mediums, you kind of must have this tool. I'm just saying. And then I'm going to stick it in place, right? And kind of press it down, make sure that tongue looks like it belongs there, nice and happy. Okay, now before I close that mouth up, let's use a little paintbrush. Had to think of the word for a minute. And I've got some powders nearby. I use PanPastels all the time for making some little powdery business. And I'm just going to mix up a little bit of white and a little bit of red to make a nice little pink color that I'm going to gently put on this tongue, you know, because tongues are pink, and maybe just a little bit more inside the mouth. So I'm reaching where you can't see off screen, where I have all my powders just loitering around waiting for me. And I have other YouTube videos so you can find out more about that, or in my tutorials I talk about powders all the time. But I'm just going to put that in place. And I think that looks pretty good. What do you think? That looks like a nice little tongue. Nice and pinky. Great. So now we're just going to shut that mouth a little bit so that the tongue is sticking out, but not like so much. And I'm going to give it just a little bit more red on the very tip so we can really see it. Okay. Can you see that fun little tongue? Now you notice how those eyes are kind of squinky on that. I like to put just a little bit more powder around the eyes, because my thought is that most things would wear mascara if they could. And I think all kinds of creatures, monsters, and animals would be totally into it if they were able. So I like to give them just a little bit makeup as needed. So there we have a cute little face. Now let's get crazy on putting some hairdo on there. So I've got a pair of my favorite scissors. These are my Chickamasa scissors, Japanese Ikebana scissors, flower arrangement scissors, and I love them so much. And they cut these little bits of wire perfectly. Now, do you need a $25 pair of scissors in order to cut this properly? No, you do not. Do you want them? Sure. So put it on your wish list. It's in my description. That'll take you to my Amazon influencer page, and I have them there in case you ever need a pair of scissors. But what I love about them is it lets me cut a lot of these craft materials. It's got a really good sturdy cutting. It's got little notches for things that are thicker. It's pointed so I can get into small areas, you know, stuff like that. I like to share with you anything that I have found that works really great for me in case you will make it work great for you too. All right, so now I have a bunch of little hairdo bits. How do we put these in? Super easy. All I do is I take these needle nose tweezers and I grab, and any tweezers will work fine. They're pretty easy to find. I grab down close and I just shove it in. And I shove as much as I can because that will just melt itself kind of in the oven. It doesn't really melt. This plastic is pretty heat resistant, and it's usually just enough melting to kind of grab into the clay once we bake it, which I will talk about in a minute. So I'm feeling like this dude needs to have some really crazy ass hair. I mean, why not? So see what I've got going on so far? And I think you can agree with me that SoftFlex is not just for beading and stringing. It is absolutely for whiskers and hairdo. So if you're not already using it to make hairdo for weird creatures, perhaps that is an area of your creative life that you need to examine a little bit more. All right, the nice thing about this too is after you get them all in and once you bake it, if you decide that something is too long or you want to trim it down or something, you totally can. You can also kind of bend them a little bit to make them curve in different directions if you want. They're not like wire. They won't stay exactly how you do it, but they have metal in there, so they're pretty responsive to slight manipulations in the curvatures. All right, I'm going to put this last one in, and then we'll take a look at this. All right, what do you think, guys? What a fun hairdo is that, right? So I'm just going to put this in the oven just like this. It'll bake, and you're going to read the instructions on your package of clay. Like I said, I'm using Sculpey Prima, which I love. It's my favorite. And on the side here, it'll kind of tell you, you know, what to do, how to bake it. I also have a YouTube video on baking polymer clay. So if you're watching this and you're new to polymer and you want to give it a try and you're not quite sure, I've got some basics out there, including that, how to bake. And I am just going to set this guy down. He'll be like this when he's all done, and bake him. And then I'll have yet another wonderful weirdo with the help of SoftFlex wire to make my life a little bit more surreal. Enjoy!